The emperor's first love had returned to the palace at last. Despite all my machinations, she had still found her way back. Very well then, let the battle begin anew. I intend to bestow upon Helena the title of Noble Consort Helena, with residence in the Palace of Accumulated Elegance. What are your thoughts, Empress? Emperor Adrian toyed with his prayer beads, his tone ostensibly seeking my counsel, yet clearly brooking no disagreement. In my previous life, I had been too naive to perceive his true intent. I had raised objections about her humble origins and improper protocol, pressing him until he fell silent, ultimately granting her merely the rank of beauty. Yet what came of my efforts? I had earned Adrian's displeasure, while Helena garnered his favor. Within half a year, she had been elevated to consort status regardless. Your Majesty's arrangements are most excellent. Tomorrow I shall have the palace renovated for her. I acquiesced to his wishes this time. Having been reborn for a month now, I found I could face him with equanimity, though I dared not meet his gaze directly, lest the hatred in my eyes prove too difficult to conceal. Adrian appeared taken aback by my ready agreement. After a moment's pause, he continued, "Your temperament tends toward the spirited, and prolonged residence in these deep palace quarters must prove tedious. Tomorrow, invite your family to visit the palace for conversation. It shall provide some relief from the monotony." Having delivered these words, he departed without my customary attempts to detain him. Before Adrian's ascension to the throne, during the fierce succession struggle, he had been considered the least likely candidate among his brothers. His ultimate triumph as emperor owed no small debt to the unwavering support of my family, the House of Whitmore. My father held the title of Duke of Westmarch, distinguished by his military prowess, while my elder brother Marcus pursued scholarly endeavors as a member of the Imperial Academy. Initially, father and Marcus had no desire to become entangled in that turbulent affair. Regrettably, I had been so thoroughly beguiled by Adrian's tender words and honeyed promises that I would accept no other suitor. I offered him counsel and strategy, sharing intimate moments with him as well, believing our harmony genuine and our affection true. Yet there always seemed to be some invisible barrier between us, a source of constant bewilderment and frustration. Only later did I discover that barrier was Helena, his childhood sweetheart, with whom he had long shared mutual affection. The Helena family had fallen into decline, offering him no political advantage, so he dared not bring her into his household while courting my favor. How romantically tragic. The gentleman harboring feelings while maintaining a facade with me for 3 to 5 years, while his beloved willingly endured solitude at the convent, preserving her purity and waiting faithfully for him. What a touching love story indeed. Once Adrian had secured the throne and stabilized his reign, Helena was naturally brought to the palace. My subsequent descent into jealous madness, coupled with my family's growing arrogance in their achievements, ultimately led to our complete downfall and exile, a sequence of events that seemed almost inevitable in retrospect. Your Majesty, Helena has returned from the Convent of Tranquil Hearts to the Helena family residence. She appears to be under the protection of His Majesty's personal guard. Our people dared not approach her again, my faithful attendant Pearl whispered in my ear, drawing me back from my reverie. Withdraw them all and ensure the matter is handled discreetly, I instructed. Pearl had grown up alongside me, and I could always rely upon her thoroughness in such matters. Since my rebirth, I had been determined to eliminate Helena, that source of calamity, while she remained at the convent. Despite employing every means at my disposal, I had still failed to prevent her return. The memory of that poisoned wine burning through my throat and permeating my limbs flooded back. This time, let her taste such torment instead. The following day brought the welcome arrival of mother and my sister-in-law Margaret to the palace, filling me with genuine joy. Melody, dear, how have you been these past days? As soon as the servants were dismissed, Mother took my hands and examined me thoroughly from every angle. I had grown so accustomed to being addressed as Your Majesty or Empress that hearing my given name spoken aloud brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Adrian had once called me by such endearing names. Melody, dear one. After his coronation, however, he had fallen into the habit of addressing me merely as Empress. I had attributed this change to court protocol until I later heard him tenderly calling Helena by her pet name. My darling. Oh, my little sister, why the tears? Who has dared to upset you? Margaret quickly dabbed at my eyes with her handkerchief, then playfully rolled up her sleeves in mock fury. Just point out the culprit, and I shall drag them here to answer for their misdeeds. Margaret was the cherished daughter of a military duke, possessing a forthright temperament that had somehow won the heart of my scholarly brother Marcus, a pairing that had surprised us all. Melody, we have heard whispers about this Helena matter, so you need not worry. Your father and brother are prepared to defend you, Mother said, patting my hand with a mixture of comfort and barely contained anger. Even if she does enter the palace, she shall not receive such grand treatment. No, you must not interfere, I hastily interjected, knowing I could not repeat the errors of my previous life. He is no longer the Adrian of old. Mother hesitated, then sighed deeply. Ah, the wolf cub has grown into a wolf indeed. Mother and sister-in-law, you must warn Father and Marcus. They absolutely must not oppose him in this matter. In all future dealings, they must exercise the utmost caution. The principles of overwhelming merit leading to suspicion and the fate of hunting dogs once the prey is caught were well understood by both Father and Marcus. Unfortunately, in my previous life, my blind infatuation had created numerous complications for the family. Sister-in-law, please tell Marcus to have his students petition the throne, requesting that His Majesty expand the imperial harem. Sister, what are you suggesting? Margaret was clearly startled by my words. Previously, I had treasured Adrian like the apple of my eye, and even his reluctant acceptance of other women had caused me days of sulking. Now, to hear me actively promoting the selection of additional consorts was truly shocking. In my previous life, I had done everything possible to prevent new selections, and Adrian had been content to maintain his apparent fidelity to Helena. While they enjoyed their blissful romance, I faced impeachment from court officials for my jealous nature. How absurd it all seemed now. Since I no longer loved him, 3,000 beauties in the harem meant nothing to me. However, I wondered what Helena might think of such arrangements. Very well, we shall handle external matters while you must take care of yourself within the palace, Mother said, apparently recognizing my transformation with evident relief. She stroked my hair gently. Always remember that the Whitmore family serves as your foundation. Our house requires no glory or protection from you. We wish only for your safety and happiness. Helena finally entered the palace, though not alone. She was accompanied by noble consort Victoria, consort Grace, Lady Catherine, Lady Rose, and a collection of other beauties. We pay our respects to Her Majesty the Empress, came the chorus of voices early one morning as the concubines gathered for their morning audience. Their melodious voices filled the reception hall, creating a truly pleasing atmosphere. Most of these women I had seen only in portraits, but Helena I recognized immediately. Her skin was luminous as fresh snow, her demeanor so fragile and pitiful that she inspired immediate sympathy. Truly an unforgettable beauty. I hear His Majesty spent last evening in the Palace of Accumulated Elegance. It appears noble consort Helena enjoys His Majesty's particular favor, I remarked deliberately, watching as the other women's gazes turned toward Helena with expressions ranging from curiosity to calculation. His Majesty has been most gracious, Helena replied with composure, like a pure lotus blossom that had somehow found its way into the murky waters of palace intrigue. Given noble consort Helena's advancing years and his majesty's clear affection, you should focus on providing an heir as soon as possible, I said with a smile. Helena and Adrian were of the same age, 22 this year, making her 2 years my senior. In a room filled with girls of 15, 16, 17, and 18, we two women in our 20s could hardly help but feel somewhat diminished by comparison. Helena could no longer maintain her ethereal demeanor, and even her smile became strained. A sense of satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Her pretenses, I would strip them away piece by piece. For more than a month, whenever Adrian visited the harem, he went without fail to the palace of accumulated elegance. He did not visit my palace of eternal peace, even on the 1st and 15th days of the month, as protocol demanded, much less any other time. While I felt no longing for his presence, indeed, his absence was preferable, the newly arrived consorts had not even glimpsed the emperor since entering the palace. They could only come to me daily to voice their grievances. Even the usually well-composed consort Grace had reached her limit today, her words carrying thinly veiled criticism of noble consort Helena for monopolizing imperial favor and disrupting palace harmony. Seeing that Helena had accumulated sufficient resentment from the others, I decided it was time to end her period of exclusive attention. Your Majesty has summoned me. For what purpose? Adrian glanced at me briefly before returning his attention to the documents before him. I ignored the obvious displeasure in his eyes, though I found myself puzzled by how I had ever been so deeply infatuated with this man in my previous life. If I had simply paid closer attention, I would have noticed the abundant evidence that he did not truly love me. Your Majesty's frequent visits to noble consort Helena's quarters. I stepped forward to prepare fresh ink, but my words were interrupted before I could finish. Are you planning another jealous scene? Adrian paused in his writing and looked up with a smile that failed to reach his eyes, sending an unpleasant chill through me. I had indeed been prone to jealous outbursts in the past. The difference was that previously he had carefully placated me with apologetic smiles, whereas now he regarded me with obvious disdain and mockery. I merely wish to remind your Majesty of the importance of treating all consorts fairly, I continued, grinding ink at a steady pace. The imperial court and the inner palace are intimately connected. Your Majesty's reign is still in its early stages, and people's loyalties remain unsettled, should favoritism breed discord. When you showed exclusive favor to Helena with no other consorts present, it caused no particular concern. However, now that the harem teems with beauties, neglecting the others would surely displease their families as well. To say more would constitute interference in state affairs, so I left my meaning implicit. Adrian understood my implication well enough, his expression shifting as he acknowledged somewhat defensively, I have been negligent in this regard. Adrian was hardly material for effective governance. Such a simple matter of political consequence required my guidance for him to comprehend. Nevertheless, I offered the appropriate praise while simultaneously sowing seeds of doubt. Your Majesty's attention is consumed by affairs of state, naturally leaving little room for such details, I said, adding fresh ink to his brush before returning it to his hand. However, noble consort Helena is intelligent. She should understand the need for discretion. Adrian's eyes grew cold, but then he shook his head dismissively. Helena pays no attention to such considerations. Her thoughts are elsewhere. I made no response, smiling inwardly at his unwavering devotion. Such deep affection could hardly be shaken by a few casual words from me. Today marks the first day of the lunar month. According to protocol, he should visit my palace, but I had no desire to endure his company. Lady Catherine has been rather willful, speaking constantly of her admiration for your Majesty for an entire month. Perhaps your Majesty might pay her a visit instead. This was the first time I had ever turned Adrian away so directly. The Empress seems much changed, considerably more sensible now. Adrian observed, raising an eyebrow with a smile that carried undertones of suspicion. Sensible. I had merely gained clarity about the true nature of things. Just as Adrian had once been willing to humble himself before me to gain the throne, he would naturally extend favors to others now to maintain stability in his court. That very evening, he selected Lady Catherine for his attention. On my instructions, Pearl ensured that the sedan chair carrying her to the Emperor's quarters took several conspicuous detours around the Palace of Accumulated Elegance. Word reached me that lights burned throughout the night in the Emperor's chambers, while the red candles in the Palace of Accumulated Elegance appeared to flicker for much of the evening as well. The following day, during morning audience, I presented Lady Catherine with a bracelet of garnets, symbolizing fertility and abundant offspring. Being the youngest among the consorts, she already possessed a delicate, flower-like beauty that now bloomed with the fresh dewiness of early dawn. When she cast a triumphant, challenging glance toward Helena, her youth and beauty were truly radiant to behold. Helena maintained her practiced smile throughout, yet her naturally pale complexion made the slight shadows beneath her eyes quite prominent, despite additional powder applied to conceal them. My own spirits lifted considerably at the sight. Helena was not, after all, a woman of genuine magnanimity. Otherwise, she would not have harbored such hatred toward me or orchestrated my destruction in my previous life. Lady Catherine represented merely the beginning. Helena would soon face countless other women in the harem. How would she manage then? Over the following month, while Adrian continued his frequent visits to Helena, he spent equal time summoning various other consorts. As for me, his lawfully wedded empress, I had apparently been forgotten entirely. In his eagerness to eventually eliminate the Whitmore family, he was certainly sparing no effort to cultivate favor with others. Noble consort Helena showed displeasure to His Majesty today. His Majesty had intended to visit Consort Grace, but changed his mind at the last moment to remain in the Palace of Accumulated Elegance, Pearl reported while combing my hair. Even the most beautiful flowers can become tiresome to the eye, I replied drowsily. But as for her, how quickly she has lost her composure. No man enjoys repeated rejections, regardless of his feelings elsewhere. When other quarters offered warmth and sweetness while she provided only coldness and displeasure, how many times could even Adrian's deep-rooted affection withstand such treatment? Your Majesty should not become overconfident. Noble consort Helena has not experienced her monthly courses this month, Pearl warned softly, recognizing my relaxed tone. Her quiet words struck me like thunder. I opened my eyes sharply, striking my forehead in dismay. Recent successes had made me complacent, causing me to overlook such a crucial development. In my previous life, Helena had conceived shortly after entering the palace. Upon learning of her pregnancy, Adrian had elevated her to noble consort status on an auspicious date without even waiting for the child's birth. My previous life, I realized my nails had unconsciously dug into my palms, the pain bringing me back to the present with a clear plan already forming. The 15th day approaches soon. Pearl, His Majesty has not visited me for such a long time. Do you think he no longer cares for me? I grasped her sleeve, affecting a mixture of melancholy and anxiety. With so many beautiful sisters in the harem, His Majesty must be quite dazzled by now. Perhaps he has forgotten me entirely. I continued my performance, reaching for a handkerchief to dab at my eyes and lips with practiced distress. I thought the Empress had truly changed her nature these past months, but it seems she was merely putting on an act for me. Privately, you remain as prone to jealousy as ever, came Adrian's voice from behind me, accompanied by the sound of approaching footsteps, arriving precisely as expected. I turned with an expression of surprise mixed with delight. Your Majesty, how did you come to be here? I quickly attempted to compose myself, bowing in contrition. I have behaved improperly. Please forgive me. These servants are truly worthless, failing to announce your Majesty's arrival." "Think nothing of it. I instructed them to remain silent. Otherwise, how could I witness this other side of you?" Adrian's smile suggested genuine amusement at my display. For these past 2 months, I had refrained from any jealous scenes, which had undoubtedly concerned him. Without jealousy to indicate my emotional investment, how could he be certain of his hold over me, and by extension over my family? Seeing me still capable of private tears over him surely pleased him greatly. "Adrian, you always tease me so." I pouted playfully, exactly as I had in our early days, spoiled and devoted, with eyes only for him. In this moment, we were not emperor and empress, but simply Adrian and Melody. As expected, the familiar address and manner had their intended effect. "Your Majesty, Master Felix has come again with medicine," announced a young maid. Felix served as Adrian's chief eunuch and most trusted confidant. The medicine was a fertility tonic, delivered without fail the morning after each night Adrian spent with me, with Felix personally ensuring I consumed every drop. "How thoughtful," I murmured coldly. Felix entered shortly after, kneeling to present the medicine bowl elevated above his head. "I humbly request that Her Majesty take the medicine." Pearl moved to accept it but stopped upon catching my meaningful glance. "I have grown quite tired of this particular medicine," I said, placing a hand on my still flat abdomen. "Since it has shown no results despite my faithful consumption, perhaps it would be better given to someone else, rather than wasting His Majesty's thoughtful gesture." Felix prostrated himself lower, cold perspiration beading on his forehead. "Your Majesty must not. This medicine is exclusively prepared for you by His Majesty's personal order." Ignoring his protests, I continued. "Noble consort Helena enjoys the most frequent imperial attention and shows the greatest promise of conceiving an heir. This medicine should go to her instead." "Your Majesty, please do not jest. His Majesty's special favor cannot be casually transferred to others." Felix's perspiration fell freely now as he crawled forward on his knees, desperately attempting to force the medicine bowl closer to me. "How absurd! Can I not decide the fate of a simple bowl of medicine?" I leaned back slightly. Felix, his aged frame trembling from prolonged kneeling, began to shake uncontrollably. The medicine bowl wobbled dangerously in his grasp, threatening to spill. Pearl reacted quickly, catching the bowl just as it was about to fall, though a few drops were lost. Master Felix is truly showing his age. One should handle His Majesty's gifts with greater care. Pearl, accompany Master Felix and ensure he witnesses that I have not wasted His Majesty's thoughtfulness in the slightest. Felix's face had drained of all color. Pearl walked ahead carrying the medicine, followed by Felix, supported by 2 capable young eunuchs. I watched their departing figures until Pearl returned alone. "Noble consort Helena consumed every drop," she whispered. I delayed her with conversation for half an hour. Even if she wished to expel it, it was far too late. "And the Imperial Medical Bureau?" "This morning, my lady suffered a sudden illness. The Duke summoned away all the physicians, leaving only a few apprentices mixing medicines, hardly competent for serious matters." "Pearl, do you believe in divine retribution?" "Whatever your Majesty believes, this servant believes as well." Before noon had fully arrived, chaos erupted in the palace of accumulated elegance. Finding no physicians available, they burst into the Emperor's study hall to seek Adrian directly. "Noble consort Helena is experiencing heavy bleeding. His Majesty has abandoned his council meeting and rushed to the Palace of Accumulated Elegance. All court physicians have been summoned back by imperial decree," Pearl reported swiftly. "His Majesty has also commanded your presence." "Since he has summoned me, I shall certainly go and observe the situation properly," I replied through gritted teeth, the accumulated hatred rising once more, impossible to suppress. I would witness their pathetic state with my own eyes. A single bowl of medicine had caused her miscarriage, yet I had consumed such tonics for 5 years without fail. When Helena first entered the palace, I had proudly displayed this imperial favor before her very eyes. She had smiled meaningfully with hidden implications. My continued childlessness had made me blame only my own inadequacy. I had begged Mother to obtain countless folk remedies, all to no avail. I had often fantasized that if I could bear a child, Adrian might love me more, making it harder for Helena to steal him away. Only before my death had Helena personally revealed the truth. Every bowl of medicine I had faithfully consumed was actually a contraceptive brew personally ordered by Adrian. A few doses would make conception difficult. Adrian, still unsatisfied, had me consume them continuously, without fail. I had trusted Adrian completely, while he confided everything to Helena. I had been their plaything, dancing to their manipulation. Now that Helena was with child, there were countless ways I might have sought revenge. I deliberately chose this particular method, for the sake of Adrian's so-called imperial favor. I arrived fashionably late, even after the hastily recalled court physicians had already reached the scene. This humble servant has failed in his duty. I could only preserve noble consort Helena's life. The chief imperial physician knelt on the ground, followed by a row of his colleagues. Incompetent fools! What use are any of you to me? Adrian's eyes were bloodshot as he swept the tea service from a nearby table, sending porcelain crashing across the floor. We delayed too long! There was nothing we could do! The physicians pleaded desperately. Your Majesty, what has happened here? I stepped carefully over the scattered porcelain fragments, using my most innocent tone. I heard that noble consort Helena was experiencing bleeding, but surely with His Majesty's personally bestowed pregnancy-supporting medicine, such complications should not occur. I emphasized the phrase personally bestowed, watching with satisfaction as Adrian's face grew even more livid. Your Majesty, Helena's weak voice drifted from the bed. Adrian shot me a cold, piercing look before rushing to her bedside. I am useless, unable to preserve your Majesty's child. Why did Her Majesty the Empress seek to harm me? Helena sobbed weakly, her voice frail, yet her eyes fixed on me with a gaze no longer pure, only venomous. Noble consort Helena, what do you mean by these words? Today Her Majesty did indeed share a bowl of medicine with you, but that was His Majesty's gift to Her Majesty. Her Majesty, in her compassion, shared it with you. Surely you do not suspect His Majesty's medicine? Pearl interjected. How dare you question His Majesty's judgment? I scolded Pearl mildly, watching with amusement as Adrian and Helena's hands remained tightly clasped. The medicine I personally ordered could not possibly be at fault. Adrian closed his eyes, breathing heavily. Then noble consort Helena must have been careless herself. Such negligence toward the imperial heir, what punishment does she deserve? You? Helena's breathing became labored, her grip on Adrian's hand tightening. I have always been extremely careful. Only that bowl of medicine. The physicians can testify for me. I beg your Majesty to grant me justice. Large tears rolled down her cheeks. Even she could feel pain when the blade pierced her own flesh. Oh, I too am curious to hear how medicine that has been consumed safely all this time could suddenly cause problems. I seated myself calmly on a small stool, fixing my gaze intently upon Adrian. At this time, my Whitmore family remained at the height of its power. We were not yet the defenseless lambs of my previous life, stripped of military command and left to slaughter. Adrian's eyes blazed red with fury, his teeth chattering with rage. Without consulting the physicians, he looked toward Felix behind him and bellowed, "Old fool! You explain this!" Felix drew a resigned breath and collapsed to his knees with a heavy thud. This servant has sinned. When preparing the medicine, something unclean must have contaminated it. This servant accepts full responsibility. Pearl immediately stepped forward and delivered 2 sharp slaps across Felix's face. "You castrated wretch! You nearly harmed Her Majesty's health." Watching Adrian's expression darken from anger to fury, Pearl's words seemed to trample directly upon his dignity. Yet conscious of his own guilt, he dared not retaliate. Similarly, I could not afford to completely antagonize Adrian at this moment. I needed to exonerate him publicly. Recalling the countless injustices I had suffered in my previous life, tears began flowing down my face as I turned to Felix with heartfelt indignation. "Felix, you have served at His Majesty's side for more than 10 years. I have always been mindful of your loyal service, overlooking your various abuses of power and turning a blind eye to your misconduct. Even when you conducted an improper affair with Rosalie, I merely offered gentle reminders without reporting the matter to His Majesty. Who would have thought you harbored intentions of harming me over such a trivial matter? Not only have you squandered His Majesty's benevolent intentions and caused noble consort Helena to suffer unjustly, but your cruel methods have resulted in the death of an imperial heir. You truly deserve 10,000 deaths. Rosalie was a young maid in Helena's service. In my previous life, she and Felix had indeed conducted an affair. Felix's dedication to harming me stemmed not only from Adrian's orders, but also from Helena's influence. After Helena's arrival in this palace, she had secretly arranged for Rosalie to become involved with Felix, though I had never actually warned or criticized him about it. I was merely providing justification for his harmful actions against me. Adrian knew nothing of the Rosalie affair. He slowly released Helena's hand, though she immediately grasped it back, holding even more tightly than before. This servant has been utterly loyal and has never engaged in improper relationships. I implore your Majesty to see the truth. Felix kowtowed repeatedly on the ground. As the Empress of this realm, would I lower myself to make false accusations against you? If not for this matter, why would you harbor such resentment toward me and deliberately seek to harm me? This servant? Felix found himself speechless. Adrian had no desire to hear further protests. Enough. In consideration of our master-servant relationship, I grant you a cup of poisoned wine. Rosalie shall be buried alongside you. 2 lives ended with a single cold command. Adrian offered me a few perfunctory words of comfort, which I returned with equally hollow sympathy for Helena. As I departed the bedchamber, I could faintly hear Adrian's gentle murmurs. "My darling, do not grieve. I shall stay with you. There will be other chances." I clenched my fists tightly. Not yet. Patience was still required. Soon enough, their lengthy romance would be riddled with suspicion and discord. Adrian did visit my Palace of Eternal Peace briefly to probe my true thoughts. I maintained my facade of ignorance while demonstrating the same unwavering devotion as before. Using the pretext of accepting responsibility for my mother's transgression, I requested to be confined to my quarters for 1 month, hoping to dissuade him from punishing the Whitmore family over the physician incident. He departed with lingering suspicions, though I knew that after today, he would never fully trust me again. But what did that matter? The month passed swiftly. When my confinement ended, I reclaimed my Empress seal, but did not reclaim the administrative powers I had delegated to Consort Grace. During my confinement, Consort Grace had managed the seal and overseen the 6 palaces. Adrian was pleased to see my authority diminished, unaware that I had gladly relinquished the tedious, burdensome responsibilities that had long wearied me. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I entrusted the autumn festival banquet entirely to Consort Grace, rewarding her generously with treasures for her efforts. Grace was delighted beyond measure and hastily expressed her gratitude. Traditionally, palace festivals were personally managed by the Empress, or at minimum by a noble consort. For someone of her rank to receive such responsibility represented a tremendous honor. Her Majesty shows such favoritism, giving only Sister Grace this distinction. I too wish to contribute my modest abilities to assist your Majesty, Lady Catherine complained, despite Consort Grace holding equal rank with her. I understand His Majesty visits either the Palace of Accumulated Elegance or your quarters these days. I fear you lack the leisure time for such duties, I replied. Lady Catherine's expression soured as she wrung her handkerchief and glared resentfully at Helena. One wonders what methods Sister Helena employs to captivate His Majesty's attention, even when unable to provide intimate companionship, she added spitefully. Compared to other consorts, Lady Catherine did enjoy some favor, but it paled in comparison to Helena's daily access to imperial attention. Her occasional nights with the Emperor seemed insignificant by contrast. Such boldness! How dare you discuss His Majesty in such terms? I offered mild reproof while continuing to add salt to Helena's wounds. Noble consort, Helena recently suffered a miscarriage. Naturally, His Majesty shows her special consideration. Though Helena's hands gripped her sleeves tightly, her expression remained unchanged. Her Majesty speaks truly. His Majesty is indeed most considerate toward me. How interesting. If previously she had remained cautious and restrained, now she seemed completely unafraid, ready to drop all pretense with me. Unfortunately, noble consort Helena's constitution cannot support such imperial favor, I remarked coldly. Adrian's affections meant nothing to me now. Helena paled visibly. I continued twisting the knife. The harem has long lacked heirs. Should any sister succeed in bearing an imperial child first? Your Majesty, I have not experienced my monthly courses for 2 months, interrupted a soft voice before I could finish. All eyes turned toward Lady Ruth, who sat quietly in the corner. After examination by the court physicians, Lady Ruth was indeed confirmed to be more than 2 months pregnant. She must have discovered her condition early, but, unable to gain imperial attention, had waited for my release from confinement to make the announcement publicly. Sister Ruth must take excellent care of herself. Should you successfully deliver an imperial heir, whether prince or princess, I shall petition for your elevation to consort status, I declared with genuine pleasure. As long as Helena was not the mother, I cared not who bore children. Sister Ruth is truly blessed, conceiving after just 1 night, Lady Catherine remarked sourly. The other consorts showed little particular reaction, but Helena appeared shocked and barely contained her fury. In my previous life, Adrian had promised her that she alone would bear his sons. Now it seemed men's promises were indeed worthless. Whoever believed them was a fool. On the day of the autumn festival, the tribute pearls from foreign lands arrived at the palace. 9 pearls in total, 3 for me, 3 for noble consort Helena, and 1 each for consorts Grace and Victoria and Lady Ruth. Lady Ruth, now 4 months pregnant with a stable condition, showed signs, according to the physicians, of likely carrying a prince. Though Adrian felt little personal affection for her, her pregnancy earned her special consideration. What is noble consort Helena that she should receive the same rewards as your Majesty? Is this not intended to diminish your status? Pearl complained indignantly on my behalf. I cared little about such matters. In my previous life, all 9 pearls had gone to the Palace of Accumulated Elegance. Now Adrian was no longer willing to show Helena such complete favoritism. I examined one of the pearls, round, lustrous, and crystalline, truly a rare treasure. Lady Ruth's pregnancy has been difficult. Award all 3 to her, I commanded, tossing the pearl back into its brocade box where it clinked against the others. If Helena received 3 pearls, then let Ruth receive 4. Everything must surpass Helena's portion. Ruth, always cautious and humble, was both terrified and grateful for such generosity. Were it not for Pearl's intervention, she would have come personally to thank me. Meanwhile, I heard that Helena, suffering from autumn melancholy, had lost her appetite and refused lunch until Adrian personally coaxed her to eat a few morsels. I dismissed Helena's manipulative tactics with a smile, instead focusing all my attention on the evening's banquet. Since Adrian's ascension, my father had led military campaigns to quell foreign rebellions and internal uprisings, achieving complete pacification. These past 6 months had brought our nation unprecedented peace and prosperity. With the treasury full and no external threats or internal troubles, such a grand festival as the autumn celebration deserved proper commemoration. The banquet served 3 purposes: to reward faithful service, to bestow honors, and, most importantly for Adrian, to seize military command. In my previous life, I had meticulously planned the feast, even supplementing the costs with my own funds to ensure proper grandeur and impress Adrian. When he proposed the surrender of military authority, I had been so focused on competing with Helena for his affections that I frantically signaled my father to comply, completely ignoring his suppressed anger and silent disappointment at being forced to surrender his command. From that point, the Whitmore family's decline was swift, while Helena's family and their allies rose to prominence. My submission had not won Adrian's love. Indeed, he rarely set foot in my palace again. This time, I had delegated the responsibility to consort Grace. Like my former self, she desperately sought a reputation for virtue and capability. Determined to execute the banquet flawlessly, she had undertaken extensive renovations and attended to every detail, further weakening her already frail constitution. Adrian entered the palace of accumulated elegance and showed no intention of departing. As the banquet's opening approached, he seemed disinclined to move. Protocol required the emperor and empress to enter together and be seated last. Apparently, he had no intention of granting me this courtesy in this lifetime either. After my preparations were complete, I proceeded to the banquet hall alone. The venue was packed with only the 2 main seats and the left seat below the intersection remaining vacant. 10,000 years to Her Majesty the Empress. Seeing me enter alone, officials and consorts alike seemed momentarily confused before hastily paying their respects. I immediately spotted Father and Marcus seated at the head of the officials. They looked toward me with smiles of recognition. Only after the time for burning a stick of incense had passed did Adrian arrive with Helena, prompting another round of ceremonial bowing. Adrian took his seat, and Helena moved to sit as well. Does noble consort Helena suffer from poor eyesight and fail to see me? Or does she simply not understand proper protocol? I challenged Helena before Adrian could begin his opening remarks. Helena froze mid-motion, half-seated and looking utterly ridiculous. She looked to Adrian for support, though his frown was accompanied by a slight smile at the corners of his mouth. I have been remiss in my manners. I beg your Majesty's pardon. Helena finally conceded under the scrutiny of the officials, particularly the stern gaze of the censors. How presumptuous of you to make decisions on my behalf. Failing to bow upon seeing me deserves punishment, yet by preemptively asking for pardon, no to fault you would make me appear unreasonable. I pressed relentlessly while rubbing my temples theatrically. This creates quite a dilemma. Punishing you seems wrong, yet not punishing you also seems wrong. How truly troubling. Perhaps you should assume the role of Empress and advise me on the proper course of action. I dare not presume. Please punish me as you see fit, Your Majesty. Helena quickly prostrated herself in a full ceremonial bow. How could she dare express any desire for the Empress position before the assembled court? Complete silence fell over the gathering. As Adrian prepared to intervene, I quickly spoke first. Oh my! I was merely attempting to lighten the atmosphere with a jest. Why take it so seriously? Please, be seated quickly. We must not keep the ministers waiting. The tension broke slightly as people resumed breathing. Adrian frowned, glancing at me briefly before launching into his prepared remarks. The other consorts paid little attention to Adrian's speech, finding greater entertainment in Helena's humiliation. From my elevated position, I observed Helena more carefully. Having endured such public shame, she should have been seething with rage, yet she maintained her composure and even seemed somewhat pleased. Of course, she and Adrian had orchestrated this display to provoke my jealousy and competitive spirit. I had used the opportunity to humiliate her, while Adrian believed I was acting from jealousy, and Helena thought their plan was succeeding perfectly. They wanted to manipulate me like a marionette, but their methods were pathetically crude. As the banquet reached its peak with wine flowing freely, Adrian's flushed face showed he had consumed considerable alcohol. Lady Ruth, unable to drink due to her pregnancy and sensitive to noise, had requested early departure. Consort Grace, having earned Adrian's praise, celebrated with several cups of wine and now appeared sluggish and unfocused. Consort Victoria maintained her usual dignified bearing. Helena's gaze remained fixed upon me intermittently. I knew she was waiting to witness my downfall. Indeed, Adrian soon spoke with feigned drunkenness, though his eyes remained clearly alert. Duke Westmarch has reached an age worthy of retirement and peaceful enjoyment. The various generals, too, have long endured the hardships of war and deserve proper rest. I am deeply moved by your loyal devotion to the nation. I shall promote you 2 ranks and assign you to comfortable rear positions. Would this not be preferable? No one at the banquet dared speak. Even those who had been drinking heavily sobered instantly with cold sweat. This was clearly a demotion disguised as promotion. While described as retirement and advancement, rear positions held no real authority. All eyes turned to Duke Westmarch, my father, as the acknowledged leader among them. In my previous life, despite his reluctance, he had surrendered his military command along with my father, though it had permanently damaged their relationship. Father was a seasoned warrior, naturally imposing without anger. His square face bore a long scar running from his eyebrow to his ear, making him appear particularly fierce when unsmiling. Your Majesty jests. I have led troops in 100 battles without a single defeat. Though these old bones remain, I am still capable of defending our borders and require no retirement. Now that external rebellions have been quelled and internal strife eliminated, the court enjoys complete peace with no need for military action. For Duke Westmarch to maintain armies at this time, does he intend to create his own disturbances? Before Adrian could respond, Helena's father added fuel to the fire. Though his rank was low, he possessed the right to offer counsel, making his intervention not entirely inappropriate. Shut your filthy mouth, you scholarly weakling! How dare a spineless coward like you slander the Duke? The autumn banquet transformed into a war of words between military and civilian officials. Without my interference, Father naturally refused to yield an inch. Enough! You squabble endlessly in court and continue here. Adrian rubbed his throbbing temples, clearly unprepared for Father's public defiance or my failure to support him. Events seemed to be spiraling beyond his control. Empress, Melody, Duke Westmarch is your father. I am only concerned for his health in offering him retirement. What is your opinion? Adrian gazed at me with false affection, sending unpleasant chills through me. My once beautiful name sounded revolting when he spoke it. Previously, I had thought him unqualified for imperial rule. Now I found his shamelessness to be his greatest talent. I avoided his reaching hand. How could I dare comment on political matters? Adrian's expression darkened. Seeing my refusal to assist, he moved to dismiss the topic, but I had no intention of allowing him that escape. After staring at Helena for a long moment, I spoke hesitantly. However, noble consort Helena often tells me that civilian officials are the backbone of the court. She says military generals are merely crude commoners, unsuited for important roles. If our generals could match the refinement of scholarly officials and avoid such disdain, that would surely be beneficial. The hall erupted in astonishment. Helena's face immediately drained of color as she hurriedly knelt before Adrian. "Your Majesty, I never spoke such words. Does noble consort Helena suggest I am falsely accusing you? My own father serves as the highest-ranking general." I smiled sweetly at her. A single statement sealed her fate. In everyone's eyes, as both empress and daughter of a military family, such words could never have originated from me. Military officials demanded satisfaction from Adrian. "Your Majesty, we have shed blood in battle only to be so degraded and scorned. Our hearts are truly heavy with disappointment. Your Majesty, you must see justice done." Helena refused to argue with me, turning to Adrian as her lifeline. Adrian regarded her with complex emotions. He loved Helena. That was undeniable. But when Helena not only failed to assist him, but repeatedly created obstacles, how much of that love remained after constant erosion? As Adrian's gaze grew increasingly cold, Helena's kneeling form became more dejected. "Adrian, how can you not trust me? Noble consort Helena grows increasingly presumptuous. How dare you speak His Majesty's name so casually?" I scolded her while barely concealing my smile. How did it feel to be unable to defend oneself? Adrian gritted his teeth in frustration. His scheme to effortlessly seize military authority had backfired completely. He could only attempt to mollify and reassure the military officials. Future efforts to claim their authority would be exponentially more difficult. His gaze toward Helena turned completely cold. "Noble consort, Helena's conduct is unbecoming. She shall be demoted to Beauty Helena, her father, Sir Thorn, having failed to properly educate his daughter." Before Adrian could complete his decree, chaos erupted once more. From a remote corner, flames suddenly burst high, the dancing fire quickly spreading to wind-blown curtains and climbing wooden pillars, filling the hall with thick smoke. "Fire! Fire! Fire in the hall! Protect His Majesty! Quickly, protect the Emperor!" Amid the chaos, we evacuated the hall under guard escort. Upon emerging, we witnessed flames reaching toward the sky. "Your Majesty, heaven sends this warning. Fire disrupts the harmony of the celebration. This year may bring—" I grasped Adrian's arm, speaking with apparent lingering fear. "Do not speak such nonsense. This is certainly human sabotage. I shall show no mercy." Adrian roughly shook off my hand, shooting me a cold glance before scanning the crowd behind us. "Your Majesty speaks correctly." I wisely withdrew my hand and followed silently behind him. How could it not be human sabotage? I had orchestrated it myself. We relocated to the Hall of Mental Cultivation, where ministers waited in the outer chamber while consorts accompanied Adrian to the inner hall. "Your Majesty, though there were no casualties in the Harmony Hall, the fire has become uncontrollable. We must demolish the east and west corridors to prevent further spread." Lee Harold, the new chief eunuch, reported immediately upon our arrival. Adrian's expression darkened further as he waved dismissively to acknowledge the information. "How strange that fire should break out just as Your Majesty was about to punish Beauty Helena and Minister Thorn. Beauty Helena, what are your thoughts on this fire?" I broke the silence first. "The fire occurred far from my father's seat. He could not possibly be responsible. I implore Your Majesty to investigate thoroughly." Helena again hastily prostrated herself, eager to deflect suspicion. Her face, still blackened by smoke, remained unwashed, with tears threatening to spill. Adrian's gaze held traces of sympathy despite everything. "Though Your Majesty rules as the Son of Heaven, you are not omniscient. How can you know all the schemes hidden in someone's heart? Even if this incident was not your doing, how can you guarantee your father's innocence? In my opinion, interrogation is necessary before drawing conclusions." I summoned a servant while Adrian's eyes flickered but offered no objection. Your Majesty, the autumn banquet was entirely organized by Consort Grace, who extensively replaced all decorative items with great fanfare. Who knows if she left behind hidden dangers? Furthermore, this fire burned with unusual intensity. It must relate to materials within the hall. I implore your Majesty to investigate. Helena addressed Adrian while staring directly at me. Knowing that once her father fell into my hands, guilt would be manufactured if none existed, she quickly shifted blame to Consort Grace after brief consideration. Consort Grace, badly frightened and confused, suddenly realized Adrian's icy gaze was fixed upon her. She quickly knelt and protested. Your Majesty, I organized the banquet with utmost care and personal attention. The decorations could not possibly be at fault. Someone must have harbored malicious intent and deliberately set the fire. Grace began weeping before finishing her words. Enough! Such weeping is unseemly, Adrian commanded coldly, his temples throbbing with irritation. No one dared speak further. I too remained silent, leaving Adrian to make his own judgment. He worked his prayer beads until they clacked loudly, then abruptly stopped. The fire's origin was indeed unusual. Consort Grace, you are confined to your quarters pending investigation. Your Majesty, I am innocent. Grace attempted further protest, but Adrian would hear no more. A glance from him brought servants to cover her mouth and drag her away. Hearts inevitably harbor favoritism. The consorts returned to their quarters, while officials endured questioning until the early hours before leaving the palace. The Harmony Hall fire was finally extinguished at the hour of the tiger. No evidence of arson was found, though investigators discovered that during Grace's renovations, the wooden materials had been treated with oil. Originally intended for preservation and durability, it had become a catalyst for disaster. In his fury, Adrian exiled the entire household of Grace's family, the Greys, while Grace herself was stripped of her titles and sent into exile. As Grace was removed from the palace, she proclaimed her innocence with heart-wrenching cries that none believed. Only I knew she was truly innocent. Not only the wood, but also the curtains had been soaked with oil, and the evening's splendid candles numbered nearly 100 more than originally planned. With such perfect conditions, the fire was inevitable. Between Helena's family and the Greys, one had to fall first. After all, in my previous life, the Greys' betrayal and duplicity had been utterly unforgettable. Without the Grey family's treachery, father would not have been left without breathing room. Adrian cared nothing for consort selection, but I had deliberately elevated Grace to consort status. Once the Grey family had their daughter in the palace, they would not be satisfied merely supporting Helena's family. With conflicting interests, they would naturally check each other. Though the fire had interrupted proceedings, Adrian had still only demoted Helena without punishing her father further. Father would never easily surrender military authority, leaving Adrian dependent on Helena's family. But having lost the Grey family's substantial support and failed to seize military command, did he really think other opportunistic allies would continue supporting him? Adrian's disappointment with me meant he no longer visited my quarters. Seeking to cultivate more influential families, he initiated another consort selection. However, this time, the great houses had advance warning. They quickly arranged marriages for daughters of appropriate age, or if suitable matches weren't available, sent them to convents. The final selections came from minor families or distant branches of major houses. Nevertheless, the harem grew more populated. Walking through the imperial gardens, one encountered numerous charming new faces, beautiful and vivacious young women. At my age, I was beginning to feel somewhat diminished. When the consorts came for daily audiences, their chatter and gossip became overwhelming. I eventually exempted them from morning and evening attendances, preferring to hear palace news from Pearl. Thus, the year drew to its close. Lady Ruth's time approaches, I observed, consulting the calendar and turning to Pearl. Everything is prepared as your majesty ordered." With this assurance, I felt at ease. Northern conflicts had resumed, and while Adrian desired to seize authority, he remained dependent on father's military expertise. Court affairs also required Marcus's counsel. After several frustrating delays, his ambitious schemes seemed somewhat tempered, leading him to spend increasing time in the harem. I had delegated most palace authority to Consort Victoria, who managed affairs competently. Helena had conceived again and regained her noble consort status. However, the newly arrived consorts possessed considerable skill, including several beauties my brother had strategically placed. Young women resembling Helena, but significantly younger. Adrian's affections became increasingly divided, leaving little remaining for the palace of accumulated elegance. I had expected Helena and Adrian's love to be unshakable, yet it proved remarkably fragile. Had I lived longer in my previous life, I might have witnessed him maintaining a vast harem and spreading his favors widely. As year's end approached, Lady Ruth, delivered prematurely but safely, bore the first prince, earning elevation to consort status. When I visited her, she was playing with the little prince, her smile radiating maternal love beyond her years. Seeing me, she started to bow, but I waved her to remain seated. "You appear to be in excellent health. Thank you for your majesty's care." Ruth smiled, offering me the infant. I didn't reach to hold him, instead adjusting the brocade covering to reveal his small, pure face. His eyes held innocent wonder as he gazed curiously at the world around him. Pearl took the child away while I dismissed all attendants. Ruth's loving expression gradually cracked as tears began streaming down her cheeks. "Is he well?" I nodded. "What sort of family?" she asked again. I regarded her silently. "I shouldn't inquire about your majesty's arrangements. Maternal love clouds my judgment." Ruth quickly wiped her tears. "A scholarly household with modest means, an only son who will be cherished," I finally answered, touched by her earnest expression. Ruth's pregnancy had been perilous. Palace inhabitants watched like vultures with constant threats and dangers. Without my protection, she would have perished along with her child. Grateful for my aid, she preferred not to see her son face continued persecution in the palace. She had begged me to secretly remove her child while publicly claiming the birth was stillborn. I agreed, though I substituted another infant. Ruth had indeed delivered the first prince, but after one brief glimpse, he was spirited away. Palace walls run deep. I only pray he lives as an ordinary person. From now on, I shall forget him," Ruth said tearfully, descending from her bed to prostrate herself with her forehead touching the floor. "I beg your majesty to forget him as well." I departed without answering. Court officials petitioned to establish the first prince as crown prince. Adrian angrily berated the petitioners and stormed from the session. Still in his prime, why would he consider naming a successor? Yet Helena grew increasingly anxious. During every medical examination, she inquired whether she carried a son. A physician, bribed with 5,000 taels, provided her with a secret formula guaranteed to produce male heirs. Her people investigated extensively, learning that Ruth had used this very prescription after experiencing difficult pregnancy symptoms to successfully bear a prince. Spring arrived with the awakening of Insects Festival, bringing gentle rain. Winter departed as all things awakened to new life. "His Majesty approaches," Pearl whispered. Before she finished speaking, Adrian appeared before me. 6 months had passed, and his transformation was so dramatic I momentarily forgot to rise in greeting. The young man who had once captivated my heart, whose appearance had so enchanted me, had been defeated by time's relentless passage. I glanced anxiously at my dressing table mirror. Fortunately, I remained unchanged. Though no longer in my first bloom, I was far from withering. "Duke Westmarch has achieved complete victory and returns to court soon," Adrian announced, standing close to me. His proximity revealed his intoxication. With northern troubles resolved, your majesty should be pleased. I had received advance notice and felt no surprise, shifting slightly to avoid his alcoholic breath. Pleased. With Duke Westmarch's generalship and young Lord Marcus's talent, how could I not be pleased? Adrian's words were fierce, almost manic. Duke Westmarch is formidable indeed. In the succession struggle, he elevated the least favored candidate to the dragon throne. I remained silent, unsure how to respond. Adrian, unsatisfied with my evasion, grasped my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. You understand Duke Westmarch's capabilities and influence. How can I not worry? I fear that before long the realm will no longer bear the name of my dynasty. Even you refuse to help me. You are my empress. This empire is mine. Is it not also yours? This nonsense again. Did he expect me to believe such lies a second time? Like a grasshopper after autumn, he wouldn't survive much longer. I had no desire to argue, allowing him to continue his mad ranting. But his words grew increasingly deranged. Melody, let us have a child. I'll make him crown prince. Wouldn't that be wonderful? He leaned toward me with these words. Revolted, I pushed him away forcefully. Already unsteady from drink, my shove sent him tumbling to the floor. How dare you? His Majesty has consumed too much wine. Escort him to his chambers. I rubbed my sleeves, unable to suppress the disgust coursing through me. Who dares? Adrian struggled on the floor like a common ruffian. Lee Harold approached carefully, helping Adrian to his feet. Your Majesty, the floor is cold. Please take care of your health. Send him to the Palace of Accumulated Elegance, I redirected. Let those two confront each other in their madness. That night, the usually tranquil palace suddenly erupted in commotion. My sleep had always been light, and I awakened immediately. Investigation revealed that Adrian had gone to the Palace of Accumulated Elegance and, unable to control his impulses, had been intimate with noble consort Helena, resulting in a miscarriage. The entire Imperial Medical Bureau had mobilized to preserve the pregnancy. Should your Majesty go observe? Pearl's report came with evident amusement. No need. Inform the guards to remain extra vigilant, I replied, feeling equally pleased while worrying that Adrian's madness might lead him to desperate measures. An hour later, news arrived from the Palace of Accumulated Elegance. Despite the physicians' tremendous efforts, they could not save Helena's child. This outcome didn't surprise me. The child had been dead for some time. The physician's prescription, used for 2 months, had long since destroyed the infant's vitality. It continued growing within the womb, absorbing maternal nutrients until delivery would cause fatal complications. The premature incident had actually saved Helena's life. Regardless, the result remained the same. Father returned from his successful campaign and told me the time had come. I took what father had smuggled to me and went to see Helena. Perhaps from Adrian's guilt toward Helena or other complex emotions, after Helena's miscarriage, he no longer dared enter the Palace of Accumulated Elegance. Having endured 2 losses of children, first hope raised, then dashed, Helena now resembled a withered flower, lacking her previous haughty demeanor from my former life. "Why have you come?" she asked from her sickbed, eyes filled with venom. "I came to see you," I replied, emphasizing I while maintaining an air of supreme authority. "You poisonous woman! You're unfit to be empress." "And you think you're worthy?" I ignored her venomous words, smiling as I regarded her. "Did you think waiting 8 years would make you empress?" 8 years have passed. What are you now?" Helena suddenly sat up, gasping raggedly. "What did you say? How could you know?" Watching her confusion and helplessness brought tremendous satisfaction. I had no desire to linger. "How do you know?" she demanded. "The High Monk never made such a prophecy. I should have been empress." I should have been empress. Her powerless screaming echoed behind me as I strode forward, ignoring her cries. You want to be empress? Then I grant you that title, I whispered softly, my words carried away by the wind. I considered briefly whether to see Adrian one final time, then decided against it. I changed into black traveling clothes and, with guard assistance, escaped the palace. Before departing, I ensured that documents found in Helena's family residence, fortune-telling papers predicting imperial destiny, appeared on Adrian's desk. His so-called youthful passion had merely been Helena's family's ladder to power. That night, the palace blazed with lights and billowed with smoke. I looked back once at those high walls, the prison that had confined me for a lifetime and a half. I mounted my horse and rode swiftly away, traveling ever farther. I heard Helena's family had attempted rebellion, trapping the emperor and empress in their quarters. I heard the palace had caught fire again, with flames spreading uncontrollably. I heard the emperor and empress had perished. I heard the first prince had ascended the throne, with Duke Westmarch serving as regent due to his meritorious service. These were merely roadside rumors. None concerned me now. For the remainder of my days, I wished only to travel the length and breadth of the realm, exploring all corners of the world.